Hi, this is Dr. Lucy. Welcome to the medical world. Today I will tell you about Dr. Kent. I will tell you about his life and contributions in homeopathy. He was early foreign homeopathic pioneers after Hahnemann. James Tyler Kent was an American physician best remembered as a forefather of modern homeopathy. In 1897, Kent published a massive guidebook on human physical and mental disease symptoms and their associated pseudoscientific homeopathic preparations entitled Repertory of the Homeopathic Materia Medica, which has been translated into a number of languages. It has been a blueprint to many modern repertories used throughout the world and even remains in use by some homeopathic practitioners today. 1849, birth of Dr. James Tyler Kent. James Tyler Kent was born on March 31, 1849 in Woodhull, New York State in the USA as the son of Stephen Kent, father, and his wife Caroline Tyler, mother. Kent was raised as a staunch Baptist. 1868, education. Kent attended secondary school at the Franklin Academy of Plattsburgh, New York. Later he graduated from Madison University, today's Colgate University, with a bachelor's degree in 1868. He graduated from the Madison University in his 19th year, and 2 years later secured his AM from the same university. From the Medical Institute of Cincinnati he underwent instruction in allopathy, homeopathy, and other unorthodox medical system like naturopathy and chiropraxy, a method of curing by adjusting with the hand a displaced joint of the vertebra to which disease is attributed, without drugs or surgery. Being trained thus, the students developed a spirit of tolerance to all systems and later choose what they liked best. 1870. After completing 2 undergraduate degrees by the age of 21, Kent undertook 2 postgraduate courses. He earned a master's degree from the same institution in 1870. 1873, career. Kent attended the Institute of Eclectic Medicine at Cincinnati, Ohio. Kent graduated from this institute in 1874, where, in addition to standard medicine, he studied naturopathy, homeopathy, and chiropractic. Kent graduated from the institute in 1873. 1874, Kent's first marriage. In 1874, Kent married Ellen and settled in St. Louis, Missouri, where he took up medical practice. His wife died shortly after marriage at the age of 19. At 26 years of age he set up practice as an eclectic physician in St. Louis, Missouri, and soon became a distinguished member of the Eclectic National Medical Association. He took a post as a professor of anatomy at American College in St. Louis 2 years later. 1875, early medical life. In his 26th year he was married and set up practice as an eclectic, choosing the best forms from the various systems, physician in the city of St. Louis, in the state of Missouri. As one who was hardworking and diligent, he was very successful and became a member of the Eclectic Medical Institute. As homeopathic teaching here was only superficial, he was not much impressed by it. 1878, Kent's second wife Lucy became seriously ill. In 1878, Kent's second wife, Lucy, became ill. In spite of Lucy's symptoms of nervous weakness, insomnia, and anemia being treated by both orthodox and eclectic physicians, her condition continued to deteriorate and she was bedridden for months. On drive. Kent's wife's request, Dr. Richard Felon, a homeopathic physician, was called in to see Lucy. Following his prescription, she made a dramatic recovery. As a result, Kent elected to study with Felon and changed from eclecticism to homeopathy. It was an event in his domestic life that changed his professional practice and his future. His wife, to whom he was very much devoted, developed some trouble, which failed to respond either to eclectic or allopathic treatment since her condition was becoming worse. At her request sent for Dr. Felon, a homeopath of repute. His method of questioning appeared to Dr. Kent to be quite nonsensical. When he gave a few sugar pills with the instruction that a few of these are to be dissolved in a cup of water and a teaspoonful to be given every 2 hours till he fell asleep, Dr. Kent could only smile at the absurd treatment. However, in deference with wife's wishes, he gave her a teaspoonful and retired to his study. Engrossed in his books, he forgot to give the second dose, and when he remembered and came of his study after 4 hours to give the second dose, he was surprised to find her sleeping, which was a miracle to him as all the previous treatment had failed to cure her insomnia. Dr. Fallon continued his visits, and Mrs. Kent steadily improved and her ailment is completely cured. This made a deep impression on Dr. Kent, and he took up the study of homeopathy through Dr. Fallon, who took the first lessons through Dr. Heyman's Organon. Reading every book and other publication available on homeopathy, he was convinced about the truth in homeopathy and began practice as a pure homeopath. 1879, Conversation to Homeopathy. He considered homeopathy to be the only therapy that was guided by laws and principles, and the only one to address the fundamental cause of illness. He then became a student of Heyman's Organon and other works of the New School, that resulted in his complete conversion to homeopathy. In 1879 he resigned from the Eclectic Medical Association. It was at this time that he became a fervent adherent of the precepts of homeopathy, a branch of alternative medicine that purports to treat patients through the administration of remedies containing massively diluted forms of substances that, if given to a healthy person, would supposedly cause symptoms similar to the disease. It is falsely believed by homeopaths that the introduction of such similars into the body effectively stimulates it to defeat the ailment or disease. 1881 to 1882, Chair of Surgery at Missouri Homeopathic Medical College, St. Louis. 1883 to 1888, Professor of Materia Medica at Missouri Homeopathic Medical College, St. Louis. He was appointed to the Chair of Anatomy in the Homeopathic Medical College of Missouri, which he held from 1881 until 1883. From 1883 to 1888 he was the Professor of Materia Medica at the Homeopathic Medical College of St. Louis, Missouri. During this period, Kent's second wife died. Among the various professional associations of which he was a member, the more prominent of them were the Illinois State Homeopathic Medical Society, the American Institute of Homeopathy, and the International Hahnemannien Association, besides which he held honorary corresponding membership in the British Homeopathic Medical Society. 1890 to 1899. In 1890, Kent moved to Pennsylvania to take a position as Dean of Professors at the Postgraduate Homeopathic Medical School of Philadelphia. He became the Professor of Materia Medica and Dean of the Postgraduate School of Homeopathy at the Heyman Medical College, Philadelphia. He remained in that position until 1899. 1896. 1896 called forth to treat Clara Lewis Toby to be his later wife, herself an allopath turned homeopath. Was being treated with lachesis repeatedly by homeopaths in all her previous consultations, and Kent declared it a medicamental miasm. He cured her of the condition by proper antidotes and advised never to use lachesis again. Married her and with her help completed the works of the philosophy, the Materia Medica and the Repertory. 1897 to 1903. In 1897 Kent published his magnum opus, Repertory of the Homeopathic Materia Medica. This became the guidebook repertory on which much of the modern practice of homeopathy is based today. Kent edited the Journal of Homeopathics from 1897 to 1903, producing 7 volumes of the journal. Kent moved to Chicago in 1903, where he taught at Heyman Medical College. This guidebook to ailments and their associated similars remains the repertory on which much of the modern practice of homeopathy is based. Kent edited the Journal of Homeopathics from 1897 to 1903, producing 7 volumes of the journal. 1909. Kent remained at that post until his departure in 1909 to become Professor and Dean of Hering Medical College and Hospital, an institution also located in Chicago. Kent moved to Chicago in 1903, where he taught at Heyman Medical College. Kent remained at that post until his departure in 1909 to become Professor and Dean of Hering Medical College and Hospital, an institution also located in Chicago. 1910. In November 1910, Kent was instrumental in the establishment of the Society of Homeopathicians as a means of disseminating the principles of homeopathy promulgated by Heyman. The group published its own journal, the homeopathician. Kent wrote voluminously and his works were published into several non-English languages during the course of his life. He gained a significant number of adherents in India, where several publishers of his work are located. 1916, death. After completing third edition of the repertory, on the insistence of his students took a vacation and went to Stevensville, Montana. He was suffering from catarrhal bronchitis, which developed into Bright's disease, and 2 weeks later, on June 16, 1916 he died. Kent died of Bright's disease, glomerulonephritis, on June 5, 1916, in Stevensville, Montana. He was 67 years old at the time of his death. Contribution of Kent in homeopathy. His contributions include the repertory of the Homeopathic Materia Medica, 1897, Lectures on Homeopathic Philosophy, 1900, What the Doctor Needs to Know in Order to Make a Successful Prescription, 1900, Lectures on Homeopathic Materia Medica, 1904, New Remedies, Clinical Cases, Lesser Writings, Aphorisms and Precepts, 1926. Kent's discovery. He advocated the use of 30, 200, 1 meter, 10 m, 50 m, centimeters and mm potencies made on centesimal scale. Kent introduced the doctrine of series and degrees in the treatment of chronic diseases. He advocated high-potency prescription, 200 C and above for chronic cases, single remedy prescribing, emphasis on mentals and generals, wait and watch methodology from the 4th edition Organon. Kent's 12 observation for second prescription helping in follow-up cases. Kent proved drugs like aluminofos, alumina silicata, or amars, or amide, calcarea silicata, etc. The influence and popularity of Kent's interpretation of homeopathic philosophy has steadily increased around the world since his death. Kent as a teacher. 1881 to 1988, Dr. Kent was famous for teaching Materia Medica. He taught Materia Medica at Homeopathic Medical College St. Louis from 1881 to 88. 1890 to 1899, he was teacher of Materia Medica at School of Homeopathy, Philadelphia from 1890 to 99. 1903 to 1909, he worked as a senior lecturer in Materia Medica at Heinemann Medical College and Hospital, Chicago from 1903 to 1900, and at the same time at Herring Medical College and Hospital. He was so famous that students from England, European countries, India and other parts of the world sought admission to the institution where he taught the subject. Sir John Weir, A.H. Grimmer, Pierre Schmidt, B.K. Bose and many famous homeopaths all over the world were his disciples. Kent is a doctor. 1. First he began to practice with low potencies, but he was not satisfied. Later he resolved to test the 30th potency to see if there was any medicine in it. He prepared with his own hands the 30th potency of podophyllum with water according to centesimal scale Hazarn whenever he observed Avenue Herrater the method of Heinemann, having been told that water was as pux he became patient. He then realized the power of potentized medicines, and he thought of using more and more highly potentized remedies in his all the practice. Thus he advocated the use of 30th, 200th, 1 meter, 50 m, centimeters, dm, mm, potencies made on centesimal scale. 2. Dr. Kent introduced the doctrine of series and degrees in the treatment of chronic diseases. He found that one potency is not sufficient to cure a chronic case. It will generally do for acute diseases. Since many chronic diseases are cured by keeping the patient under the influence of one indicated remedy for 2 or more years. But this NCEDM cannot be done with continuous curative action, unless the doctrine pure of series and degree is fully understood and used. 3. Dr. Kent discovered that just as there are octaves of musical tones, so there are octaves in the simple substance, through which, severally it is possible to correspond with the various planes of the interior organism of the animal cells. These planes correspond to similar remedy in 30th, 200th, 1 meter, 10 m, 50 m, centimeters, dm, and potencies. He found that when the action of 30th is completed, the patient needs the 200th potency to keep him under the remedial action for a time, but when the action of 200th is exhausted, the patient requires 1 meter potency of the same remedy, and so on till the same remedy in higher and highest potencies cures him permanently. 4. Dr. Kent discovered the law of vital action and reaction, as pointed out by Dr. Heyman in a more definite manner. The law is, a medicine is too high to cure so long as it is capable of aggravating the symptoms belonging to the sickness, in the first hours in acute, and in the first few days of a chronic sickness. He also found that a homeopathic aggravation is essential from the application of the similimum in chronic cases. If there is only relief without homeopathic aggravation, the chronic sickness is superficially affected and shall require a deeper acting remedy to remove the vital disorder. Kent's 12 observation. Moreover, Dr. Kent discovered the language of reaction and had shown the direction of the course of treatment immediately following the first dose, and how the multiple reactions following this step should be interpreted and the patient led scientifically towards complete recovery. 5. He evaluated the symptoms in a nice manner, imposing greatest values to the mental symptoms with their further classifications. He did greatest importance to will, then understanding, and then memory of the patient. They form the innermost of the man, and these are extended outward through the general physical organism. Dr. Kent did not attach much importance to the constitutions as an aid in prescribing. He says, every individual is a constitution. Kent as a writer. 1. 1897 he published Repertory of Homeopathic Mater Medica. 2. 1900 he published Homeopathic Philosophy. 3. 1905 Lectures on Homeopathic Materia Medica was published. 4. Dr. Kent proved many new medicines, which he has described in his books, New Remedies, Clinical Cases, Lesser Ruling Aphorisms and Precepts. 5. What the doctors need to know. A very popular writing of Dr. Kent. Kent's attachments. 1. He was the president and trust of Chicago Homeopathic Hospital. 2. He was the member in A. American Institute of Homeopathy. B. International Heyman Association. C. State Homoeo Medical Society. D. British Homeopathic Society, London. Only those who have handled the repertory of Kent can understand the magnitude of his deep study, patience and remarkable perseverance. This book is a monument for all that Dr. Kent stood for, and it is doubtful if any such book would be produced, as it will be redundant and unnecessary, and at best can only be a repetition. He died at Stevensville, Montana on June 6, 1916. Ideas. Cover of a recent Indian edition of the Homeopathic Repertory by James Tyler Kent. Kent is remembered for his naive arguments against the germ theory of infectious disease. The microbe is not the cause of disease. We should not be carried away by these idle allopathic dreams and vain imaginations, but should correct the ail and vital. The bacteria is an innocent feller, and if he carries disease, he carries the simple substance which causes disease, just as an elephant would. As a follower of a mystical Christian religious sect headed by Emanuel Swedenborg, Kent believed that illness had spiritual causes. You cannot divorce medicine and theology. Man exists all the way down from his innermost spiritual to his outermost natural. Kent was a vitalist and believer in a vital force. Legacy. Kent was eulogized by one contemporary as genial, gentle, devoted friend to his patients and pupils, jealous guardian of pure homeopathy against the criticisms of those whom he considered his enemies, sensitive, embittered, retiring man in later years as he thought one after another did him wrong. Most of his patients and pupil were devoted to him, and he basked in the sunshine of that devotion. British scholar of homeopathy Francis Truers has characterized James Tyler Kent as the ultimate homeopath of the period when homeopathy flourished in America. Tours has noted Kent's pioneering use of extremely high dilutions, called high potencies, by adherents of homeopathy, and meticulous scholarship in the creation of his repertory, as among Kent's primary attributes as the homeopathic exemplar of his generation. Works: Sexual Neuroses. St. Louis, Missouri, Maynard and Tedford, 1879. Address before the International Hahnemannian Association at its 7th annual meeting, 1887. Repertory of the Homeopathic Materia Medica. Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Examiner Printing House, 1897. Lectures on Homeopathic Philosophy. 1900 Memorial Edition. Chicago, Ehrhart and Carl, 1919. Lectures on Homeopathic Materia Medica. Philadelphia, Borick and Taffel, 1905. New Remedies, Clinical Cases, Lesser Writings, Aphorisms and Precepts. Chicago, Ehrhart and Carl, 1926, member of 1. Illinois State Homeopathic Medical Society 2. American Institute of Homeopathy 3. International Hahnemannian Association 4. Honorary corresponding membership in British Homeopathic Medical Society. Books: 1. Lectures on Homeopathic Philosophy 2. Repertory of Homeopathic Materia Medica 3. Lectures on Homeopathic Materia Medica 4. Lesser Writings, Clinical Cases, New Remedies, Aphorisms and Precepts 5. Use of the Repertory, How to Study the Repertory, Clinical Cases, Repertory and Repertorization 6. What the physician needs to know in order to make a successful prescription. Notable contributions. He is looked upon as one of the best teachers and exponents of the Homeopathic School of America. More than 40 years of medical practice and over 30 years of teaching experience. 1. He was the only homeopath who contributed vastly to the system in the three fields: philosophy, materia medica and repertory. 2. His work of the repertory is more systematic than any previous author is systematically indexed. 3. He created portraits of Remetisag, Sulphur as the ragged philosopher. 4. Later M.L. Tyler, his student, further developed his ideas of constitutional pictures of remedies and wrote a book, Homeopathic Drug Pictures. 5. Kent is remembered for his observations. Single quote Kent's 12 observations in his lectures on homeopathic philosophy. 6. Pioneered the use of highly potentized remedies, 200 and above. 7. Advocated potencies mad on centesimal scale. 8. Laid importance of mind symptoms in chronic cases. 9. Theory of octaves. He discovered that just as there are octaves of musical tones, so there are octaves in simple substance, through which it is possible to correspond with the various planes of the interior organism of the animal cells. These planes correspond to similar remedy in 30th, 200th, 1 meter, 10 m, 50 m, centimeters, dm and mm potencies. 10. Single medicine prescription. 11. Weight and watch principle, which he adapted from the 4th edition of Organon. No repetition of dry dose till improvement from previous dose stopped completely. 12. Kent inspired lots of students, one of them being the recent Drive. George Fidalkes,